And welcome back, where in this video I'm going to take you through the ACCA SBL pre-season information, walking and talking you through part 4 of the key elements that you need to get down in your notes, or if you'd like access to my exclusive ones you can see on the screen, click the link in the description. You can download the PDF there, along with, as you already know, I'm associated and affiliated with the Stranty. If you'd like access to some of their mocks and other free resources, you can click the link down below. I am affiliated with them, and for transparency as always, if you were to buy anything, I get a small commission which helps to support the channel, which you guys are absolutely amazing at, for all the support, the subscribing, the liking. If you have any questions about the pre-season materials, leave me a comment below. More than happy to help. And let's get back into where we left off from the previous video, because I know you're super excited on there. We just went through the KPIs, and now we're getting on to Athletic Transcentral, an overview of this football club, because you've got to refer to this specific football club. Don't use real life examples. You've got to know these things like they're your own team. This club was founded, it's well established, and you can see in my notes how I've linked it to it could be points you could mention in Porter's Five Forces, the competitive rivalry on there. It doesn't say if AT has always been in the top league on there. It's always been up there in the top league, but we didn't know for sort of how long. In terms of a controlling interest, the Climcombe family, or the Clycombe family, whichever one you want to call it on there, that is something that, if I'm marking your SBL exam, you've got to be referring to these people, families in this case specifically, rather than saying it or them or they on there. Makes a massive difference in terms of the answer that you provide. So that's the ownership and who controls the direction. That's the Clycombe family on there. We're also told it's not listed, so you can't just simply go buy stocks on the stock exchange for the football club itself. It's a privately owned business by the Clycombe family, but then another sort of flip side is because, well, it's not a PLC, it's not on the stock exchange, therefore we actually might have less disclosures as a result, so that the actual company accounts won't be as tricky on that. But again, I'm speculating on these sort of things. Who knows if they were going to throw that in. In terms of no transfer fees for developing a good player from the academy, and good for financial fair play for that note sort of there. This is all about the teams that AT has a men's and women's first reserve and under 18s team. And it was mentioned in one comment I saw in one of my videos as to, does the women's team also have a reserve team, James, and an under 18 team? And I would say, based on the way they've worded that, Athletic Transcentral, men's and women's first reserve and under 18s team, yes would be my answer to that. But the key thing you can see on my notes there, no academy, and I just put money spinner, because what it means is there's no transfer fee. You've brought the players up, you develop them from about 9 to 10 years old, bring them into the first team, and if you were to sell them on, that is going to be at a profit and good for financial fair play. Just to get down, I touched on before about how successful the men's team have been, and it says for the last 60 years they've been in the top division. We obviously didn't know the sort of years before that, but in other words, they've been really, really good. That's fantastic in terms of income and exposure. They've won the competition 6 times. They've also won the domestic cup 5 times in their success, so they've been very, very good on there. But the key thing here is, however, there you go, they're 8th in the current league. They've not won the Division 1 title in the last 15 years. They've not qualified for the International Cup in the last 8 years. So that is having a negative impact on the exposure of the club, and then also the potential revenue on there moving forward. The women's team has only been established for 25 years. They're actually doing pretty well. They finished 3rd, highest ever position. But the flip side with the women's and the reserve teams is, you can see from my calculations, you might want to get that down on there, is in terms of, on the assumption that they play in the same stadium as the men, and they only get 3,000 fans for the women's teams, 1,000 for the under 18s and reserves, that's 7.8%, 2.6% of the capacity full. So if they were to expand the stadium, it's all because of the men's team on there. Coming on to the board structure now, we're giving a nice little breakdown, and just to make it a bit more entertaining, I've given you some nice colours on the notes. Clycombe family member. You sometimes get these thrown in, but the chief executive officer is the only family member part of the actual board structure on there, just for your notes to get it down. And then also on there, you can see that we've got the marketing and IT manager. I've got that little arrow because the marketing and IT director is in charge of an IT manager, and you can see there from the points that they have an oversight of the IT manager and her staff. We're not given how many staff they've got, anything on those lines, but it's a case of the company secretary is also involved in the board in assisting how it operates. Not a director, so that means they're independent on there, shouldn't be swayed, but they throw it in sometimes in ethical questions. But we're not given anything in terms of the company secretary, what their qualification and stance is on there as well. So just something to note, could get thrown in on there for you. We've touched on the chief executive for Clycombe for the family, but then it gets interesting as to the number of players, the 125 players, 130 coaching staff and the technical staff employed, responsible for the transfer policy on there. And you can read it through. It's sort of, we're not told how many staff the IT manager and her staff actually are in control of. But the bit that's interesting at the bottom, each function is responsible for recruiting and appraising its own staff, with, for example, the first team players being appraised by the first team manager. And when I read that, I just went, so you're telling me there's no input from other areas about how much these players and different places and the finance team are getting paid? Whereas if you work in finance, your appraisal is going to be done by someone in finance. There's not going to be, say, the finance director involved in the players, how much they're being signed for, the wages, the transfer fee. And there was no remuneration committee mentioned as well. So straight away, red flags on ethical issues, possible audit risks on there, what could be the first domino effect of the breach of financial fair play, with the lack of internal controls on budgets, where if someone's quite chummy and friendly with one another and they go, oh, I'll give you a raise, I'll do your remuneration nicely, I'll look after you, sort of thing. Definitely something in terms of a familiarity threat and self-interest, intimidation, self-review. We're told from the one committee on here, it's the audit committee. They have the two non-executive directors and they're given the roles that they're in charge of. The financial statements to review them, internal controls, liaising with the external auditors. And things that just went through my head were, there are only two non-executive directors. Now, it's not a UK company, so it doesn't have to be 50-50. But two, that does sound pretty low in terms of the responsibilities. We don't know what their experience levels are for the roles, what relevant experience they have. Have they even worked in football on there? And then what about the other things in terms of the audit committee? Compliance, communication with shareholders, whistleblowing. Are they actually fulfilling all of the obligations that they need to be aware of on there? We'll then touch on, and I think it's quite key to go on to this because we've just looked at the, and this is going to relate to that marketing and IT director, we have the information systems. In fact, let me put it all on one page so you can see it on here. So we're coming to the information systems, and this is the internal information systems are adequate for its purposes. So that marketing and IT director, who also has a marketing and in charge of the marketing and digital content, and also has an oversight with an IT manager and her staff, the internal information systems are adequate. A very reassuring word on there. I definitely have that written down in your notes going into the exam. Anything to do with systems, internal controls, IT failures, breaches of data, and they even tell you about the company holds names, contact information, financial details, season ticket holders. What if there was a data breach? They are very topical to talk about on there. The marketing and IT director, so this is not the manager, this is the director, believes that the maintenance of the data is currently in accordance with data protection legislation in Ireland. Again, the key word there for your notes is believes. We've had adequate and believes. It does not tell me that there's high assurance here or there's systems in place that are robust on there. It's a case of AT has a website and its own app. It also has accounts on long established social media platforms. And again, I'm thinking to myself, right, data breaches, risks associated with this, if it happened, the fines are also on top of it, lawsuits. And then it says long established social media platforms. Well, who has access to these platforms? What if a actual news story got out about the football club? Who has access to those accounts on there? These are all things that I would just be throwing in there that you'd need to be well on the ball about before you even get into some of the other website extracts and other areas that you can see on here, which nicely brings us to the end of our part 4. We'll get onto the stadium, the values, and the final diagrams in part 5. So make sure you hang around and click the video at the end of this so you can access it on there. If you aren't already, make sure you subscribe, like the video. Thank you as always for the support, and leave me any comments below if you have any questions. I hope the videos are helping. These are the sort of things that go through my mind, and if you want access to the notes, as I said, just click the link in the description and they're all yours to download. So I'll see you on the other side, and for the next final part, our session number 5. So I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.